Raider Nation, things are heavy today for everyone who loves the Raiders. I mean it. Unfortunately, it was another ugly loss. The offense was stuck in the mud. The defense ran out of gas, but there is still that twisted kind of hope for a high draft pick. On top of that, you have a key veteran on defense, frustrated with the fan base, serious pressure on the leaders in the locker room, and a major voice inside the franchise watching the whole silver and black plan start to wobble. Stay with me until the end, because that last part is going to bring some surprising info about what is really happening behind the scenes. But before we break down every detail of this mess, let me ask you for something real quick. Hit that subscribe button. It is free, and it helps this silver and black content stay alive. Smash the like button, because that tells YouTube there are Raiders fans spread out everywhere. And remember, the comments are our meeting spot, the place to vent, rant, and drop your opinion. Look, this game against the Chargers in Los Angeles was exactly the kind of thing that drains a fan's soul. Division rival, stadium with a cold vibe. The offense started slow. The defense tried to hold the line. In the end, we walk out with a 6th straight loss. It is tough to even say that out loud. The start actually helped a little. Both offenses were pretty flat. It had that ugly late season feel. But like it has been all year, when the chance finally came to flip the game, the Raiders offense just did not show up. Geno Smith was under pressure, slow processing, holding the ball too long and killing drives before they scared anyone. On the other side, the Chargers did not even need anything that special. They had already swept the Raiders this season, and once again, they did not need to empty the tank to do it, especially after Justin Herbert left early with an injury. It looked like the perfect setup to steal an upset and finally breathe a little. The truth is, even then, this team could not show any real life. Ashton Jeanty, who was supposed to be that relief valve for the offense, was basically invisible. No explosive runs, little impact as a receiver, and none of those plays that flipped the energy on the sideline. The defense even stole a couple of extra possessions. But when you keep running back on the field because the offense cannot sustain drives, at some point the body and the mind just give out. And to be honest with you all, watching this team right now is accepting that the season officially became a draft race. It hurts to say it, because anybody rocking the silver and black was not built to root for losses, but the math is right in our face. Every time this team trips, that spot near the top of the next draft gets a little better. This week's results made that crystal clear. The Jets went out and beat the Falcons on a walk-off field goal, picked up their 3rd win, and left the Raiders alone in the deepest part of the standings. Right now, projections have Las Vegas sitting close to the 4th overall pick, with a very real shot to climb up near the 2nd if the losing streak keeps rolling. The remaining schedule does not help at all. There is a rematch with the Broncos, a brutal road swing to face the Eagles and Texans, and then 2 home games in Las Vegas against the Giants and the Chiefs that are straight-up battles. If we look coldly at it, the only matchup that feels even remotely winnable is that Giants game. And even there, if Jackson Dart or Jameis Winston wake up on a hot day, it can get complicated in a hurry. So the picture is this: a 2-15 season totally on the table, a locker room that has to keep its head on straight, and a fan base already thinking more about a generational prospect than a wild card chase. Only here you get this kind of honest breakdown from someone who lives and breathes Raiders football every day, no filter. Tell me in the comments if you can actually bring yourself to root for losses just to get that high pick, or if that tears you up inside the way it does me. And if you think this game was already embarrassing enough, wait until you hear what people are saying about one of the most well-known veterans on this defense after this matchup. There is one play from this game against the Chargers that is burned into the minds of a lot of people in silver and black. It was not a last-second touchdown or some ridiculous play call on offense. It was the image of one of the most familiar veterans on this defense basically stopping mid-play and then pointing fingers at everybody else. I know it is infuriating just to think about it. I am talking about that catch by Quentin Johnston. Devin White lost in coverage. Watch the receiver eat up space, break a tackle, and take it to the end zone. Instead of sprinting like crazy to chase it down, a lot of people saw a linebacker who kind of gave up on the play. The broadcast caught it, the replay ran 1,000 times, and Raider Nation unloaded on social media. Fans were calling for him to be cut on the spot and saying their patience ran out right there. Different fans used different words, but the message was the same. You cannot accept a guy quitting on a play, especially on a team that is already getting punched in the mouth every week. White is not some random backup. He is a starter, a former All-Pro, a guy they brought in for experience and impact. When that type of player looks checked out on a key snap, everyone watching feels completely abandoned. At the same time, you can at least understand a small part of it without defending it. The team walked into this game with 2 wins and 9 losses, bodies banged up and minds exhausted. White is on a 1-year deal, no real security. In that spot, a lot of players start thinking about not wrecking their body for a team that does not seem to be going anywhere, but then comes the question that really stings. Which franchise is going to want a linebacker who now carries the reputation of quitting on plays? For the front office, making a move right now feels like shooting themselves in the foot. White leads the team in tackles, well over 100 on the year, even without putting up highlight plays every single Sunday. The defense is already carrying way too much weight because the offense cannot stay on the field. Pulling your top tackler out of that mess could knock down what little balance they still have. That is why, even with the fan base calling for his head, it is hard to see the Raiders cutting him before the season ends. While this whole Devin White drama boils, the reality of the season has already kicked the door in. With this loss to the Chargers, the Raiders are officially out of the playoff race. The math is gone, the illusion is gone. To make it worse, this is now the 3rd time in Pete Carroll's entire career that he has hit double digits in losses. One more slip and he locks in the most bitter season he has ever had on the sideline. On paper, the fallout is simple. The team climbed into that 4th spot in the draft order with a real chance to get even closer to the top if they keep losing and other desperate teams manage to steal some wins. To be honest with you all, it is a bizarre feeling to root for losses in the name of landing an elite prospect while watching veterans ease up in the middle of plays. It makes it feel like the problem runs deeper than talent, that it is cultural. A situation like this with a veteran already leaves the locker room hanging by a thread. Now imagine stacking that on top of a defense that kills itself every week, only to see the offense sink everything again. It is no coincidence that in this very same game, one of the biggest names on the roster finally crossed the line when he answered a taunt from the rival quarterback. And that is exactly the scene we need to break down in the next story. The moment between Max Crosby and Justin Herbert at the end of the game says a lot about where this team's head is at. The defense carried the piano all night. The offense put only 7 points on the board and threw away any chance of a comeback. Then you get a brutal 3rd down conversion, a taunt from the rival quarterback, and the emotional leader on defense explodes in a split second of frustration. Right after that painful 1st down, Herbert turned toward the defense and celebrated in their faces. Crosby, who had been stacking sacks and tackles for loss all game, shoved the quarterback in the back. Herbert went down, the flag flew immediately, and the Chargers got 15 free yards while our defense was stuck out there even longer. Those two see each other all the time. It has been years of facing off twice a season. Even so, Herbert came out after the game and said it was just emotions boiling over. He said he respects Crosby and admitted he should have kept his own celebration in check. Hearing that kind of respect from a rival who got beat up all game still leaves a strange taste in the mouth of anyone who lives and breathes Raiders football. The context only makes it more frustrating. The defense did a solid job in the 1st half and kept the team alive. Max was flashing, the front 7 was battling, the secondary was hanging on, but the same old story came back, an offense that cannot sustain long drives, cannot control the clock, and never gives its defense real rest. In the 4th quarter, your legs are shot, your head is burning, and any little taunt turns into a spark on a pile of gasoline. To be honest with you all, I cannot dump the entire blame on Crosby. He messed up because you simply cannot gift that kind of penalty in a game that still had a little life left. He is going to get fined by the league and hear it inside the locker room. But that shove is also the symptom of a group that is completely worn out, a unit that feels like it has to be flawless every single week while the offense keeps tripping over its own feet. There is even a wild twist in all this. The same Herbert who was doing the taunting finished the game with a broken left hand. He is going to have surgery, but has already said he plans to keep playing. Since it is his offhand, the Chargers will probably call more shotgun and adjust the whole plan around their quarterback. They are fighting for a playoff spot and tailoring the scheme to him, while we are here wondering if there is any identity left in silver and black. Pete Carroll sees that split inside the roster clearly. In his interviews, he made it clear that nothing was going to magically fix itself just by firing the offensive coordinator. Chip Kelly is out, Greg Olsen is in, and the offense is still below the minimum standard. Carroll praised the communication, said at least the operation part looked cleaner on offense. Then you look at the scoreboard, you see 14 points, and it feels like the same movie all over again. He admitted this offense is still far from where it needs to be. and that stings because it is burning another ridiculous season from Crosby and the few other defensive standouts they have. Jump into the comments and tell me if you think that shove was totally unforgivable or if you understand the outburst with everything going on. Because if the frustration is already spilling out on the field like this, imagine the weight on the shoulders of this team's leaders over the next few weeks. And it is exactly that pressure on the veterans that Carroll himself highlighted, which leads straight into our next story. There is one thing this Chargers game made painfully obvious. This team is hanging on the backs of its leaders. It is not only about bad play calls or missed assignments, it is about how a few guys are holding the locker room together while the storm hits from every side. And honestly, you can feel in Pete Carroll's press conference that he knows exactly who is keeping this whole structure from collapsing. When he talks about Max Crosby, you can tell it is not just standard coach speak. Carroll praises his consistency. He points to the tackles for loss and the sacks, but more than anything, he talks about the insane level Crosby plays at every single week. He uses him as the example of what it means to play football at the highest level. It is like saying, you want to know what true competition looks like? Watch that 98 out there. It is basically a walking manual of silver and black culture. Carroll also highlights how much impact Crosby has on everyone around him. He talks about how Malcolm Kuntz has been flashing more, stacking sacks over the last few games, feeding off that energy. That is real leadership. It is not just talking in meetings, it is punching the clock on the field snap after snap and forcing everyone else to keep up. Even in a season that already went off the rails, the coach is clear. If there is someone still holding that bar high, it is Crosby. But there is another side to that message. When the head coach talks like that about his top guys, he is also sending a signal to the rest of the roster. Something like, look at what these guys are doing, I need more players at that level. He mentions Brock Bowers and brings up that drive where he made the key catch. He talks about the well-executed touchdown and the perfect route along the back line of the end zone that let Geno hit him clean. Those are technical details, sure, but they double as a public message. To be honest with you all, it sounds a lot like a cry for help for more leadership spread across the roster. Crosby and a small group are carrying not just the performance on the field, but the emotional temperature of the team. The losses have been stacking up for the second straight year. The schedule is still brutal. And it really feels like when the veterans finally pause to breathe, there is an empty space behind them. There are not enough guys ready to grab the wheel when the game starts spinning out. That kind of setup is dangerous because while some players keep the standard sky high, others slowly start getting comfortable with losing. And then you get that silent split. One group still believes it can flip the switch, and the other is just playing out the string. Carroll needs his stars to pull more people into that first camp. If that does not happen, the culture melts, and not even a top draft pick saves it. And this is where things get even more delicate. If the coach is demanding that much from the leaders on the field, the fan base is naturally going to look higher up the ladder. To the owner, to the big picture plan, to the legendary figure who came in to help steer the franchise and now has to watch that plan fall apart. And the moment the conversation shifts up to Tom Brady's level, everything gets even heavier. After everything that has happened on the field, the truth is that everyone starts looking upstairs. Because you cannot ignore the question that is eating at every Raiders fan right now. How does a project backed by one of the greatest winners in league history fall apart this fast in its very first full season? When Tom Brady officially came in as a minority owner, a lot of people in silver and black swallowed the old rivalry and thought, all right, now we have someone who understands winning and is going to bring real structure to this place. Mark Davis sold exactly that. He said Brady would have serious influence on the football side. The idea was that he would help pick the head coach, build the roster, and set the direction. It was sold as a championship mind shaping the future of the franchise. The problem is, the 2025 season we are living through looks nothing like that promise. Brady was part of the big decisions this last offseason, co-signed the staff, the plan, the pieces. This was supposed to be the year of clear progress, solid identity, and at the very least a team nobody wanted to face. Instead, it turned into a season that collapsed. An offense with no clear personality, a defense overloaded, and a veteran coach flirting with the worst record of his career. Then the first major scapegoat became Chip Kelly. The offensive coordinator, a lot of people believe, had Brady's fingerprints all over the hire. fired in the middle of the season, big salary flushed, and suddenly all these behind-the-scenes stories start leaking about him calling plays that were not even in the game plan or the playbook. Even if that actually happened, the way it hit the media makes it feel more like an attempt to protect the image of the people who greenlit everything than a real effort to share responsibility. To be honest with you all, when that kind of detail starts coming out, the image of Brady as this untouchable football genius takes a hit. We are not talking about the quarterback who flips games in January anymore. We are talking about the executive, the advisor, the guy who is supposed to help build a functioning structure. And what we are seeing so far is a team that looks lost. Reactive decisions and an organization that seems to be improvising instead of following a solid plan. That weighs a lot on anyone who looks at the silver and black shield and is tired of pretty speeches. Fans start asking if Mark Davis is leaning more on the myth of the legendary player than on Brady's actual ability to run a football operation, because the standings, the scoreboard, and the mood in the locker room are all telling a different story. Only here you get this grounded read from someone who lives and breathes Raiders football and does not just buy into the easy narrative. And it is by putting this whole package together, the season falling apart, the on-field leader carrying too much, the veteran under fire, and the big picture project shaking, that the conversation moves to an even more serious point. It becomes about what this chaotic season really says about the Raiders' near future and about the people who keep carrying this team in their hearts, even while taking punches week after week. When you strip everything down, this Raiders season looks like a giant shattered mirror. Every piece shows a different part of the mess. Losses that push the team higher in the draft, a veteran questioned for lack of effort, an exhausted leader dragging the defense forward, and a big project upstairs that still has not found its direction. Even so, we keep going, because anyone who chose this silver and black shield is not walking away after the first storm or the 10th. And if it hurts this much right now, this is exactly the moment that reveals who is really staying. Drop your thoughts in the comments. This space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Raiders football.